Is Victor Wembanyama proving that coming off the bench might actually be his secret weapon? After 26 minutes as a reserve, the 7'4" Frenchman scored 16 of his 21 points in the second half, including back-to-back clutch daggers in the final 93 seconds, to lead the Spurs past the Boston Celtics 195 on Saturday night at TD Garden. But here's what nobody's talking about. San Antonio is now 8-1 with their franchise centerpiece in a reserve role. That's not luck. That's strategic brilliance meeting championship patience. And if you think this was just another win, wait until you hear what happened in the closing minutes. Let's break it down. What's up, Spurs fans? Welcome back to Spurs Quick News. Quick, sharp, and all about the silver and black. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into how Victor Wembanyama took over late against the Celtics to snap a 6-game losing streak against Boston. Before we jump in, drop your city in the comments so we know where the Spurs family's tuning in from. The Spurs walked into TD Garden carrying more than just a 26-11 record. They carried the weight of history. 6 straight losses to Boston since January 2022. Nearly 4 years of this Celtics team having San Antonio's number. But here's what makes this win profound. They didn't just snap a losing streak. They did it by rewriting the narrative about how championship DNA gets forged. The numbers looked catastrophic on paper. 23% shooting from 3, going 10 for 44 from beyond the arc. Against most elite teams, that's a 20-point blowout loss. Against the Celtics on their home floor, playing the second game of a back-to-back, that should have been insurmountable. Boston's defensive game plan was textbook. Hold Wembanyama to 5 first-half points through aggressive double teams. Let Derek White, 29 PTs, and Jaylen Brown, 27 PTs, dominate, and dare anyone else to beat them from outside. The Celtics executed perfectly for 46 minutes. Then something shifted. Down the stretch, the Spurs discovered what Greg Popovich, now watching as president of basketball operations while Mitch Johnson coaches, has always preached. Great teams don't wait for perfect conditions. They create them. De'Aaron Fox hit 12,000 career points while dropping 21 in this game. Keldon Johnson gave them 18 off the bench. Julian Champagnie, a career-high 13 rebounds, made the defensive play, blocking Derek White's potential game-tying 3 with 7.3 seconds left. But this game revealed something deeper about the 2025-26 Spurs. They're learning how to win ugly, how to manufacture execution when the percentages say it's impossible. Do you think grinding out wins with poor shooting is building championship resilience, or is this a flaw they'll need to fix before the playoffs? Type resilience building or unsustainable below. I'll read the best takes in the next episode. Let's talk about what really separated this win from a moral victory, because this is where you see Mitch Johnson's coaching philosophy taking root. Game tied 93-93, 1:33 on the clock. Boston had clawed back, and in most versions of this story, the veteran team with home court closes it out. But Johnson had spent 93 seconds earlier solving a puzzle that would decide the game. Wembanyama rose up for a 15-foot fadeaway over Baylor Shireman. Swish, 95-93 Spurs. 37 seconds later, after Derek White hit 2 clutch free throws, Wembanyama pulled up again, this time from 15 feet with 19.1 seconds left. Nothing but net. Game sealed at 99-95. But here's the part that reveals Johnson's tactical growth. Those weren't ISO possessions. They were the result of systematic defensive breakdowns he had been engineering for the previous 6 minutes. Johnson deployed what he calls the French vanilla lineup. Wembanyama paired with Luke Cornett, the former Celtic who received a standing ovation in his return. That Twin Tower alignment isn't just about rim protection. It's a psychological chess move. We like to line up a lot. It gives us constant rim protection, Johnson explained post-game. The idea of it in terms of rebounding, in terms of it doesn't sacrifice anything we want to do, spacing-wise. Luke's extremely smart. There's a lot of potential. Translation: Boston had been doubling Wembanyama all night, but with Cornett spacing to the corners and Fox attacking downhill, the Celtics couldn't send 2 at Wemby without leaving someone else wide open. So they went to single coverage, and that's when Wembanyama, who had been patient, setting screens, waiting for his moment, took over. My mindset was just, we have to close out that game, Wembanyama said. Too often we do lots of efforts and let it go to waste one way or the other. So I felt like not letting that happen. That's not just maturity, that's a 22-year-old understanding game theory, shot selection, and championship execution. But wait until you hear how Castle's shooting struggles actually helped the offense in a counterintuitive way. Boston's defensive strategy revealed something critical. They were so disrespectful of Castle's three-point shot, 26.9% on the season, that they literally left him open to double Wembanyama and Fox. On multiple possessions, Castle's defender peeled off completely. In a vacuum, that's disrespectful. In context, it created the spacing that allowed Fox to penetrate and Wembanyama to operate one-on-one when it mattered. Here's the strategic question. Should Mitch Johnson keep Castle on the floor in crunch time despite the shooting struggles, or does that give playoff teams too much of a blueprint? Comment, keep him in or situational benching below. If you're vibing with this breakdown so far, hit that like. It really helps keep this channel growing. Alright, let's get into the 3 biggest takeaways from this massive road win, but I'm going deeper than the surface level analysis you'll see everywhere else. Takeaway 1. The 8-1 bench record isn't about Wembanyama, it's about organizational trust. Yes, the Spurs are 8-1 with their franchise centerpiece coming off the bench. But the real story isn't the minutes restriction. It's what this reveals about the culture Greg Popovich built and Mitch Johnson is now stewarding. San Antonio could panic. They could rush Wembanyama back to 35 minutes because they're 27-11 and fighting for playoff seeding. Instead, they're playing chess while other teams play checkers. Wemby has missed 14 combined games this season with calf and knee injuries. Under the NBA's 65-game rule for postseason awards, he can only miss 4 more games. Johnson hinted pregame that Wembanyama might return to the starting lineup soon, but only when the medical staff says his body is ready for 32-plus minutes consistently. This patience is how dynasties protect their investments. Tim Duncan played 19 seasons. David Robinson played 14. The Spurs understand that championship windows don't open and close in one season. Takeaway 2. Castle's shooting problem is actually a development opportunity in disguise. Stephon Castle, the 2024-25 Rookie of the Year, finished 1 for 7 from 3 and 3 for 16 overall. Boston's defensive game plan was brutal. Leave Castle's defender free to double Wembanyama because Castle is shooting 26.9% from distance this season. But here's the hidden truth. Castle is learning exactly what every elite two-way guard must master: how to impact winning when your shot isn't falling. He finished with 9 points, but his hockey assists created open looks. His defensive pressure forced turnovers. His willingness to screen freed up Fox and Wembanyama. Could Castle's shooting become a playoff liability? Sure. But remember, Jason Kidd shot 27% from 3 as a 24-year-old. Kawhi Leonard was a 25% three-point shooter his first 2 years. Development isn't linear. Takeaway number 3. Luke Kornet's tribute video wasn't just about nostalgia. It's about culture transmission. When the Celtics showed Kornet's tribute video at the end of the first quarter, TD Garden erupted. The standing ovation lasted nearly a minute. Kornet, with trademark humor, had joked before the game. For potential Hall of Famers like myself, you kind of expect it at a certain point. But this moment mattered for more than laughs. Kornet was a critical piece of Boston's 2024 championship, and now he's teaching those winning habits to San Antonio's young core. When Johnson pairs Kornet with Wembanyama in crunch time, he's not just leveraging size, he's transmitting championship DNA. He's showing Dylan Harper, Castle, and the rest of the young Spurs what playoff basketball feels like. Which takeaway matters most for the Spurs' championship timeline? Wemby's health management, Castle's shooting development, or veteran wisdom like Kornet's? Drop your answer below. Let's dissect what this win actually revealed about the Spurs' championship viability, and why the weaknesses might be strengths in disguise. The hidden strengths. San Antonio held Boston to 40 second-half points on 33% shooting. That's not luck. That's schematic excellence. Mitch Johnson made a critical halftime adjustment. Instead of helping early on drives, the Spurs stayed home on shooters and forced Boston into contested twos. The result? The Celtics, one of the league's best three-point shooting teams, took desperate shots late because San Antonio took away their rhythm. The depth is evolutionary, not just deep. 7 players scored 9+ points. When one player struggles, 3 others step up. That's the kind of roster construction that wins playoff series. And here's the psychological edge. They closed a road game without their best player at full capacity. When Wembanyama returns to 35 minutes and the starting lineup, this team adds another gear most opponents can't match. The constructive challenges. The three-point shooting, 23%, 10-44, is a real concern. But not for the reason everyone thinks. The volume is correct. The Spurs took 44 threes because those were quality looks generated by their offense. The execution needs work, but you can't teach the willingness to keep shooting when cold. Playoff teams who stop shooting when they're struggling lose. Castle shot 1-7 from 3, but 7 of his 16 field goal attempts came from beyond the arc. That's not a player afraid of the moment. That's a 21-year-old sophomore learning to shoot through adversity, exactly what he needs before May. The Celtics attempted only 4 free throws all game. In the playoffs, teams that attack the rim relentlessly get 25-30 free throw attempts. If San Antonio faces a team like the Nuggets or Lakers who live at the line, this defensive approach gets tested. What do you think defines this team's ceiling? Their defensive versatility or solving the three-point inconsistency? Drop your thoughts. The best comments get featured next. Episode. This win was huge, but it's also just the appetizer before the main course. The Spurs hit the road Sunday night for Minnesota, then Tuesday in Oklahoma City, back-to-back games against 2 of the West's most dangerous teams, the Timberwolves with their suffocating defense, the Thunder, last season's NBA champions, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander operating at an MVP level. Here's what makes this stretch fascinating. It's a diagnostic, not a test. If San Antonio splits 1-1, that tells us they can hang with elite competition while managing Wembanyama's minutes. Respectable. Expected. If they somehow go 2-0, that's a statement heard across the entire league. We're not waiting for our window. We're kicking it open right now. The Spurs are 27-11, sitting second in the West, just 4.5 games behind OKC. They're 11-2 against Eastern Conference opponents. Their point differential, some 5.3 net rating, puts them 7th in the entire NBA. And here's the whisper around the league. Mitch Johnson might move Wembanyama back into the starting lineup after the OKC game. If that happens, if he goes from 26 minutes off the bench to 33 minutes as a starter, this team could shift from ahead of schedule to legitimate championship threat overnight. Will the Spurs go 2-0 on this road trip against Minnesota and OKC, or is 1-1 the more realistic outcome? Comment 2-0 or 1-1 below. If this breakdown gave you something new to think about, perspectives you won't find anywhere else, smash that like and share it with a Spurs fan who needs to understand what's really happening with this team. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the next 72 hours define San Antonio's identity. Minnesota tonight, Oklahoma City Tuesday, and possibly Wembanyama's return to the starting lineup. The Silver and Black are 2,711. They just snapped a 6-game losing streak against Boston, and Victor Wembanyama is proving that patience and process don't just beat desperation, they build dynasties. Until next time, stay Silver and Black, stay sharp. Peace!